So let's learn how to convert strings to numbers. We'll start in with this one here. Why are we going to convert? Well, same problem as before, same thing as before. The NS string type is what's used on most of the GUI elements, but we have numbers. So if you wanted to do a calculator, which we did already, here's the functionality behind some of the conversion part of it. So if the input is numeric, you need to convert it to a number type before it's string to, you have to convert the number to a string before you can work with it. Essentially, from a GUI perspective, you have to take the string, convert it to a number in order to work with it from a math perspective. So we're going to create a single view application. We're going to drag 4 labels, 2 text fields, and a button to the view. So we're going to have first number, second number, add, and then sum. So let's go ahead and make that. So close the Xcode project you were in if you were in one, and create a new project, single view. I'm going to assume you know how to do this because we've done it several times. This one I'm going to call convert. Let's see. I'm going to say numbers to strings. Number to string. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what I call it. I just have to remember what it was further down the road. Open up the storyboard, and I'm going to drag some labels on there. So this one's going to be called number 1. And then I'll put number 2 underneath it. These don't really do anything, they're just labels. And so I got some text. I'm going to put some text boxes in here. This is number 1. Another text box for number 2. I think I have to put a button on here too. Drag a button on there. And the button's going to say add. And then put another label underneath it. And this one has so the sum equals something like that on there. I'll make this one a little bit bigger. And then maybe I'll center it too. That looks pretty good. That's my button. Actually, I don't like it centered. I'll make it left justified. We all done? Give you a few more minutes? Give you a few more minutes. Alright, so something looks like that. I think kind of looks like that. It's a different iOS version. First number, second number. Kind of close. So when the user touches one of the text strings, we're going to see a keyboard comes up. And then keyboard's going to go away because we're going to resign that first responder. We've learned how to do that. So as they enter in the values for the fields, the next property is going to the next thing it's going to do is we're going to take the strings, convert it to numbers, and add them together when the user clicks on the add button. So we're going to read the values of the string by looking at the property that's associated with it, and then convert it to the numerical values. So the add button then is going to do all the work for us. It's going to convert all of the text to strings, I should say, from the UI text fields to numbers, add them together, and then put it back on the label. So we're going to take a number from the addition and then convert it to a string. So we're going to see a lot of the toString and a lot of the string from number or number from strings methods and stuff like that. So control drag now. Let's see, we got number 1. So we're going to call the UI text fields number 1, number 2, and then the label sum. And we're going to make 3 properties out of this. So go ahead and click on the tuxedo icon, get rid of the side piece over here. Switch over to the viewcontroller.h file. So this guy here is going to be called sum1, sum2, and then sum. Well, I'll take a look at it for a second here. Output or something. So control drag, we're going to make properties out of them. So sum1. Or actually num1, I think it was supposed to be right. Num1. And then num2. I'm not taking the exit, I'm making property. I'm not taking the did and on exit, I'm just making the properties. So num2. So I got num1, num2, and then what was the sum? Sum. So this one here, control drag it. This one's going to be sum. So the label's called sum. The UI text field number1 is num1, num2. We can also make a did end on exit. Not a bad idea because we know we're going to redesign the first responder, hopefully. So I'm going to right mouse click on the first one. Come over to the did end on exit. Some of you people, when I was walking around, I noticed that you had touchdown or you had something else labeled. Touchdown's not going to work. There's no sender event that happens. It doesn't work automatically. So you want to make sure you get the did end on exit, the one on the top, if you're going to wire it. So this one's going to be, I'm just going to call this one done, so I remember what it is. So done, and you can leave it on ID or you can change it to UI text field. I just changed it to UI text field because I have a habit of doing that. Now, for the second one, I'm going to put it both on the same done. So I'm going to right mouse click over here. I'm going to drag this guy here, but I'm going to drag it to this one to connect them both. Why create two methods when one will work for both? Because all this method is going to do is resign the first responder. So now they're both linked to the did end on exit. So the did end on exit action, so they're both linked to that. Same token, I'm going to click on the right hand side over here and make sure I send the return types, return key to done for both of these as well. So I'm clicking on the first one, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change the return key to done. And then I'm going to click on the second one and do the same thing, set the return key to done. So when done happens on the return, it says did end on exit, which means yes, it's done. It ended. And then those little methods that I called done are going to work. So I'm going to close the side of it. And we have this action here that we're going to need to, the button's not wired yet. So add button touched. Well, let's just call it add button. So go ahead and right mouse click. This one we could take the touchdown. The touchdown works on this one, or any of the touch up and sides work. So this one we're going to call this one add button. So you can call it add button touched if you want, or add button. I'm going to call it add button. Press connect. So I got add button now. Are we all connected? Anyone need any more time to connect? See if you've been doing this every week for the last, I don't know, 8 weeks or so. This should be coming a little bit faster now for you, hopefully. Okay, good. So scroll back over to viewcontroller.m. And for the done, let's resign that first responder. So put the opening and closing brackets, and I'm just going to type this in instead of having to cut and paste. So just go sender, resign first responder, and then put a semicolon at the end. That gets rid of the keyboard. So when the user exits out of that text box, the keyboard will go away. So we don't have to worry about that nasty keyboard getting in the way. Now we have the add button, and the add button is going to be the brains of the operation. So let's take a look at the code here for the add button and see what happens with this. Here's our add button. So we're going to have a float because we're going to support digits. Instead of it being an integer, we could use integers if we wanted to. So float number 1, f, is going to be equal to number1.text float value. And then float, we're just going to call this number 1 float, number 2 float. This is the names of the floats. Float number 2. So here's the method. This is your Objective-C lesson for today. This method here says float value to number1.text. Number1.text, or num1 text, is the text field that we made a property out of, and the dot text is getting the text value. And the float value says get the float value from the text value. So we're running a method to return the float value from the text, and we're going to assign it to number 1f, which is the local variable that we're going to keep track of it for. We're going to do the same thing with the second button. Then we're going to take a float sum f, sum, it's going to be equal to number 1 plus number 2. And then self.sum.text. And here's the big thing. And a string, make a string, it's a string with formats. And then this says it's going to be an object, the at directive, we're going to create an object. What's the object going to be? Well, it's going to be the float value of, and then this is just like the printf of C actually. The %f format, yeah, it says format switch. And then sum f, which is sum f up here. It's our float up here. So it's a fairly easy calculation. So I'm going to just kind of copy and paste this in. If I have to, I could type it in there, but let's just see what happens. Hopefully I can paste it in here and we're not going to have too much. Man, we got some interesting hidden characters that are coming in. So you can see I've got some hidden characters. So I'm just going to, there we go, get rid of it. What I'm doing is I'm backing over because I pasted it in here, and I've got a little dot here I got to get rid of. There we go. Alright, so I was successfully able to get rid of all the hidden characters in this. If you have a problem with it, you can just go ahead and just type it in probably. It's a little faster probably than correcting it, who knows. So the string sum.text, well, this is the sum down here. It's just going to show us the sum. It's not going to actually give us the sum equals. So we could, I'm going to fix my UI a little bit. I'm going to take out this text here and just going to make it so it just shows me the sum. And then I'm going to put the sum equals next to it. I could make the string by concatenating a string with a string. But instead I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to put a little thing out here, a little label, and it just says sum. So I got the sum with the sum next to it. So I didn't synthesize number 1, number 2, and sum. Maybe I should do that. I didn't get an error message either. So it looks like, let's see what happens here actually. I think I have a red mark, but I'm wondering where the red mark's coming from. Let me save it here. I should be coming up with a red mark, but because I didn't synthesize any of those properties I created. So I'm thinking that that's what this red mark up here is telling me, but it's not going to tell me till I run it. So I'm going to go back up and fix that problem. So I'm going to go at synthesize, and I'm going to put in here sum, and then I think I had num1 and num2. Num1, num2. And now the issues went away, which was actually kind of funny. Why it didn't show me in the code, I don't know. But I have a brand new version of Xcode on here, so I'm thinking that this is like a totally new upgraded version. I'm glad it doesn't look significantly different, but definitely has some unique characteristics to it. So let's see. This rest of this PowerPoint is going to go through what we just looked at a few minutes ago with the numbers, but taking the float value, synthesizing it, and then getting the float value, and then adding the two floats together to equal to sum, and then taking the sum and putting it onto the sum label. This slide here is actually kind of interesting because it's outdated. It's about the object memory. So when you use a class method to obtain the object from string with format, the object is automatically released for us. Well, this is very outdated because it's old back when we used to have semi-automatic reference counting. We have no more automatic reference counting button, no more option anymore, unless you're using a very old version of Xcode, where you might actually see this. In the old days, you'd have to actually make this weak or strong to retain it, because when we take the value and we convert the value, we had a string. We converted the string to a float. Big question is what happened to the string? So it's garbage because we had an object. We converted that object to another object. Well, what happened to the memory that was allocated for the string, which takes up a different size memory, it's in a different location? In the old days, it used to cause a memory leak. So we had, things that were garbage collected. So no strong references to the object. The rule is that it would, you don't use alloc copy to get rid of the object. There's no strong reference to it. We'd actually have to get rid of it ourselves or use the automatic reference counting. But long story short, don't have to worry about that slide anymore or that concept because it's all done for us automatically now. But in the old days, we used to alloc and release and do a bunch of stuff to it to make sure we didn't, because when you start converting objects to different object types, you get different instances in memory of that object. So long story short, outdated. So in summary, note that the value obtained is not quite, here we have some rounding errors. What did we put in here? 23. So to do this, we have to precision of a floating point. So apparently we have, we're using floating points. So our floating point might actually give us some decimal precision, interesting problems. But let's see what happens then if we add two numbers together. So I'm going to go ahead and run mine and see it work, hopefully. So I got number 1, number 2, and sum. So number 1, I'm going to put in here 12. Good, my resign first responder is working. It doesn't really matter, I guess, because it's on the bottom. But let's see, 13. Well, I put whole numbers in, so I got 25.00000. So I guess I could go this 12.4. Let's just do it this way. 25.7. Oh, 0, 0, 0. I got a 1 on the end here. So it's floating point, so you could use integers and get some slightly different behavior out of it. So we all have a working calculator. You know what? Nice addition to this would be, let's say, for example, and I've seen this, and I go, well, why do people even bother downloading this from the App Store when they can just make it themselves? And you probably know what I'm talking about. Tip calculator. So if you have this, then why don't you just take the money that you put in. So you have one here that says, here, we'll just make a tip calculator out of this. So we have a couple buttons here. Let's make this into a tip calculator. So I'm gonna save my project as is, and then I'm gonna mess around with it. So I'm gonna compress this here. So I have a saved copy of the project that I can upload. Now let me mess around with it. So I'm gonna take this guy here, and I'm gonna say bill amount. The bill amount. And then let's get rid of this one because we don't have to put two of them in there, right? We just need one. So I'm going to get rid of both of those two suckers. And then this one's going to be, let's see, 10%. What's a good tip? 15%? No, 10%. Let's just do 10%. And then put some more buttons up here. A 20% button, and then a 30% button, maybe? I guess you might have to help me with the math. Let's see, 30%. No, 30% is kind of high. All right, I don't know, for generous tippers out there. And so here's our pay this. What are we going to pay? The amount's going to show up here. And the amount's going to be one of these buttons. This one, this button, or this button. So now I got to change the code around a little bit because I'm going to run into problems. And hopefully I'll be able to clean this project and hopefully it'll compile correctly. But here's what I'm going to do to it. And I'm just going to test this out. It's twofold. I want to see if this newer version of Xcode has some problems fixed. You guys remember in the past I used to say, don't ever remove anything. Don't ever change the name of anything. Well, there's rumors that that problem was fixed. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to take out my synthesized line, remove it completely because I want to start fresh with this. And I'm going to take out this behavior here as well. Well, no, we'll just leave it alone. We'll just leave it alone for a second here. All right, so I'm going to go back to vcontroller.h and fix things around a little bit. So I got number 1, that's good. I don't need number 2 anymore. Let's get rid of number 2. And the sum's good. I want the sum. And I got the done. I got the add button. Let's get rid of this add button for a second though, because I'm going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to take this add button and we're going to call this one 10%. So let's get rid of this here. And this one's going to be 10. I'm just going to call it 10, T-E-N, the UI button. And this one's going to be 20. So touchdown, 20. And then change the UI button a little bit here. And this one's going to be 30. I guess I could have made, well, that's all right. Probably other ways of doing this here. 30. All right, that looks pretty good. I got my 3 buttons. I got my number. I got my sum. So I'm going to switch it back then to the viewcontroller.m. Synthesize. Put my synthesize back. I should have probably just left it alone, but put back the sum and the number 1. I got the number 1, the sum. Now this method doesn't belong anymore because I took out the add. So I'm just going to copy this because I don't have to type it in again. And get rid of this method completely. Get rid of the add method. And in the 10, I'm going to put the code back in here momentarily. I'm going to change the code in a few seconds here. We don't have number 2 anymore. Get rid of that one. So float number 1, I'm just going to call it number 1 just because it's easier that way. Let's see. Oops, I can't do that because I already have number 1. I have to call it number 1F. I have to call it a unique number because I can't use the same name twice. That's what the problem is. So number 1, float number 1 is going to be, or here, let's just call this amount. The amount is going to be equal to number 1.text float value. And then I'm going to take the sum and have that one equal to number 1, well, no, it's called amount actually. Amount times 1. You guys got to help me now. 1.10, 110%. Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. 10% tip. That's what I said. You guys have to help me with that one. I think that's about right. So now let's see if all the rumors are correct and that this version of Xcode has fixed all of the problems. Because remember, this would wreak havoc on everybody's system. Just to be safe, I'm just going to run it without doing any clean at all. I'm just going to run it right now. I'm just going to run it and see what happens. All those memory issues are supposed to be gone. Let's see, we're seeing the live test. Let's see if it works, actually. $12.50. 10%. Look at that. I'm supposed to tip $13.75. Oh, cool. All right. So you saw it. You saw it live here. If you update your system to the current version of Xcode, I think you might actually have, I didn't know if you had to do, you might be able to do it without going up into the Maverick version. But if you get that latest and greatest out that was just out last week, actually, or last weekend, if you upgrade it, it's a significant change that fixes that problem. You saw it live. I just totally messed up everything. If this were the older version, I'd get all these memory errors all over the place. This one is working. I can change everything around, and all of a sudden the memory is up to date. Everything works. So now I have more faith in this, actually. So I'm going to take the code here, and just so I can finish this off, I'm going to put this in at 20%, and I'll post this one here. We have two projects now. We have a tip calculator, and pretty easy tip calculator. So we got what was this one? 20%, and we got 30%. We can even put these in different ones if we wanted to. Actually, you know what we could do is just one button. One button would give us, actually here, let's do that. Let's just put an all button on there. So now I'm just playing. Do all. Let's see. All options. All options. So the all options button is going to put, here, let's just do this label. Maybe I shouldn't have had too many there. Let's see. Just in case you go out and celebrate St. Patrick's Day tonight, you can figure out what your tip's supposed to be. Maybe I should carry this on my phone. 30%. Alright, so the do all method here, let's get rid of this one here. Put this one back to the viewcontroller.h. Let's just add some here. Oops. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Actually, I do want to make it bigger though. Not that big. Oh, I see we got some pros and cons here. How do I can't control that. It's off the grid. Uh-oh. That's a bug. The thing got bigger than the box can get bigger than this window. Alright, well, I'm not exactly sold on this new version yet. I see we have some different scaling modes to this. Alright, well, it's a crude interface anyway, so let's just see. I'm just going to add these properties on here real quick because I can finish this up in one shot. So I'm going to call this all 10. All 20. And all 30. Alright, so we got all 10, all 20, and all 30, and then I'm going to put a little one down here. Call this one touchdown event. All button. Synthesize the all 10, 20, and 30. Perfect. And then for the all button, I'm just going to do this because it's easier. Paste it in here. Now for the heavy math part. So we got number, it's always going to be number 1, right? So we already, once we get number 1, we're good. So we could just go sum F1 is this one. Sum F1 is this one. Then I have to change the percentage. So it's going to be sum F2. Let's make this one 10%. Sum F2, sum F2. Make this one 20%. And then sum F3. Sum F3. There we go. So that one's going to do all of it. So let's see what happens. Run it. Now we get the crash bang. Memory error. No, actually it's still working. I'm just surprised I haven't gotten any memory problems with this. Alright, so maybe we spent more. Maybe we'll do $32.50. 42 cents. And pay all. Oops. All. What did I do? Oh, because I set the sum. I'm updating the sum, so that's my bad. Let's fix that. We can do that. Remember we had all 10. It's 10%. All 20. Then all 30. I have to update the right text field. Alright, now we should have a better working program. So let's see. Maybe we should raise the tab a little bit more too. Let's go $32.10. Pay them all. Oops. Pay them all. There we go. So $32.10. If I were going to do 10%, that'd be 35. 20%, 38. So maybe I should have mine round. Okay, whatever. You know, you can fix this, make this any way you want. Or you could just do 10%, 20%, 30%. Update it this way. Maybe this would be on the bottom and these should be all my options on the top. Who knows? Anyway, there's your tip calculator. Kind of crude. It's just kind of on the fly. But I was actually just testing the interface to see if it was going to crash on me, and it didn't. So I'm going to make these a little bit bigger. I can see, though, that there's some interesting UI effect here, though, with the size of these buttons. So let's just see something. I just want to make sure this still works before I upload it. Oops. $2. Oh, that looks better. Okay, dokie. I think that I've done as much as I could with this one. So there's our tip calculator. Let's go on to the next one. So I'm going to stop this video.